Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Red Hour. I'm the Dead Man, and a show I do twice a week where I throw a little chaos into Star Trek by reviewing a random episode. And today's episode is Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 7. You are cordially invited. So it starts off with a captain's personal log, and basically Cisco. So this is during the Dominion War, and at some point the Cardassians took the station, and now they've got the station back. And so this is shortly after that them returning. I think he says 3 weeks or so, and basically Cisco's just happy to be back. He says good morning to Kira on the command center, and and she says good morning, and she says, like, I'm so glad to, or it was so horrible saying good morning to Ducat, and how that felt. So then Martok is in Cisco's office, so he goes to his office. Martok's there, and he's mad about something, and he's like, "You knew about this, didn't you?" And Cisco says that he did, and basically Martok is the supreme commander of the fleet, which he doesn't like because it requires a lot of paperwork, and you know nobody likes paperwork. So at Quark's bar, uh, Alexander, Dax, and Worf are there, and Alexander's telling stories about how on Martok's ship he's like clumsy and prone to accidents and stuff, and just telling different stories like that. And he walks away for a second. He's getting transferred to a different ship, and he's about to ship out soon. So he walks away for a little bit, and Quark walks in, and he's trying to get them to have you know, Jadzia and Worf are getting married. Duh. Uh, he's trying to get them to have the wedding at the bar, and Worf doesn't want to have, he's like, we're already having it somewhere else. And he wants to have a traditional Klingon wedding. And Dax says maybe we should have it here because that way Alexander can participate. And so Worf is hesitant, but he agrees because, like I said, Alexander's about to ship off, and they may not get another chance, for a long time. So that's the end of the teaser. And so then Dax and Kira are on the. It's not a turbo lift. It's just like but it's a lift, and it functionally the same thing, but it's open faced. It doesn't have like doors. And Dax and Kira are talking on the lift, and about how Worf wants this traditional Klingon wedding. And then they get off the lift, and they're walking in the corridors, and they see Odo, or Odo sees them, and Odo like avoids them. And then Dax turns to Kira and is like, "Hey, did Odo just try to avoid us?" And she says, "Yes, I've been avoiding him too." And she asks why, and it's just because of things that went on during the occupation of the station, not the Bajoran occupation. And you know, and I don't remember like what preceded this, like what immediate episode was before this, but there are a couple times where Odo did some questionable things, but necessary in my opinion. But I'm not going to get into all that, and she doesn't want to get into all that either. So in the briefing room, there's Martok, O'Brien, Cisco, Bashir, and Worf. And Worf is talking about these trials that they have to go through. And one of them asks if it's like a bachelor's, I think it's O'Brien, asks if it was like a bachelor's party. And he says it's kind of like that, but it's not really at all. And then Dax has to go through like an evaluation with Martok's wife. And basically she has to approve of Dax being a part of his house, and she Dax has to go through different like trials too. So Martok's wife arrives, and she's like really rude to him, and she's like, I thought you would have been dead by now. But that's like, he loves the way she's talking to him. And then and she's on the way to Dax's quarters. So back in Dax's quarters, she's lighting these candles, and Worf is like ask her if they were true Klingon candles, and she makes a joke like, yes, I went all the way to Kronos and made them myself, and blah blah blah. And she's always kind of sarcastic like that, and she's talking about how it's not going to make a difference if the candles were replicated. So Martok's wife shows up, and she basically says, what is he doing here? And he's like, oh, I didn't mean any respect. And she tells him to fuck off, basically. And she's being really tough with Dax, and says some things to her in Klingon, and Dax says something back, and she's, as she walks out of the door, she makes a remark about the candles and how next time, get real candles. So that's a little funny. And then back on Martok's, Martok's ship, Worf and Martok talk about Dax, being an alien, and that's the big thing that she says, is that she's or his wife says to Dax that she's an alien, and that aliens don't really fit in Klingon culture that well. And then Martok talks to Worf, and he's basically saying, Klingons are conquerors. We don't integrate into societies or have people integrate into our society. We conquer people. And he's like, well, maybe I should go. Worf's like, maybe I should go talk to her. And and Martok tells him that she doesn't really like him that much either, and that but that doesn't mean that she doesn't accept him as part of his house. So the boys are in a cave, or they're on the holosuite, but it's a cave, and there's like a big fire there, and they're going through their rituals, and there's 6 of them. So one is like the fire. They have to endure fire, the heat, I guess. they kind of turn up the fire heat and stoke the fire, and basically they have to endure the heat. And then the other one is called blood. So there's blood, pain, sacrifice. Um, I can't read my own fucking hand right. Anguish, sorry. Anguish and death. So those are the other things. And also Alexander's there too. He has to be part of this ritual too. So back at Cork's bar, Jake is talking to Cork, and he basically says, I've sold my first book, and Cork asks him how much he got paid for it, and he's like, oh, it's just a ceremonial, that's just a expression. It isn't, they don't have money, and Cork says, well, congratulations, drinks are on, first round's on me. And he's like, really? And Cork says, no, it's just an expression. Little joke there. So back with the boys, the guys, Alexander is passed out from the heat, and he gets back up, or Bashir wakes him back up, and they start to wonder, should we turn down the heat because, some people are more susceptible to it than others, and I guess Alexander's like full Klingon, but he was raised by Worf's human parents. Also, there's these sticks. I forget what they call them, but there's like these sticks. They kind of look like giant drumsticks, and the guys are supposed to beat Worf at the end of the ceremony with these sticks. Not kill him, not try to kill him, but it's mostly ceremonial. So Martok tells them to hang on to that until the end. And then Alexander says, that he'll endure it and to stoke the fire more. That. And Miles says he's enjoying the heat. So, they're going to stick with it. They're not going to back out. So back to Dax. She's going through her trials, and she's like lifting these big heavy buckets like this and chanting something in Klingon, and basically she's going through the motions, but she's not doing it right. And so Martok's wife like yells at her, and they start arguing over how she wouldn't make a Klingon woman do it for a third time. And she says to Dax, a Klingon woman wouldn't have to do it a third time. She would get it right the first time. And reinforces the whole alien thing and how she'll always be an alien to them, and she won't integrate into their society properly, and the Klingons will always see her as alien. So then Dax goes over to she's going over then she has to go over like the history of her house, of Martok's wife's house. So she's talking about the history, and then she starts talking about a time when the Klingons tried democracy, but that's not part of like, that's like a sidetrack that she doesn't need to talk about. And of course they wouldn't want to talk about that, but and then she goes into this history about how her 23rd like grandmother, like 23 generations, great grandmother, um, she did not have imperial blood, and that the records that the woman that she's talking about, the whole entire house was killed, including her, and that the her real great 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 grandmother was like a maid or something, and so uh, she gets mad about that, and you know, and Dax is like, well, we don't have to tell anybody, we don't have to say anything. So Jake and then we go to like Jake and Kira, and they're talking, and she congratulates him on the book, and then back to the trial. It's the trial of blood, and there's a party that Dax is throwing. I guess just like a bachelorette party or whatever. And there's this guy that like those guys that have the Polynesian like fire twirler guys. He's twirling, and she's like playing drums or congos or whatever. And Jake is talking to Cork, and Cork says, it's a shame, or Jake says, oh, she's very talented, and Cork says it's a shame she's going to waste those talents with what he calls Worf a walking frown, which I thought was funny. Then the boys are hanging above, and so we see Bashir and Miles hanging on this rope, and then below them is the fire, and they're supposed to be seeing a vision or something, and Bashir says that he sees a vision of him killing Worf, and he's gonna kill Worf, and then O'Brien starts saying, "Yeah, kill Worf," and then Odo enters this party, this bachelorette party, and basically there was a noise complaint, and he talks to Kira, and Kira says, he's like, how long is this gonna go on? And she says that it'll go on as long as the station commander allows it, who happens to be me. Because Cisco's doing the trial, or whatever. So then she says that she wants to talk to Odo in private, so they walk away. And then Martok's wife walks in and breaks up the party and yells at Dax, and Dax says something to her in Klingon, and she says something back, and pulls a knife, and Dax punches her, and then she like spits in her face, or spits on the ground, and walks away. And Dax is like, what are you staring at? Get back to partying. And then the next day, she's got a hangover, and that Polynesian dude in Morn is in her quarters, and Worf walks in, and he's upset because Martok's wife is basically called off the wedding, and she's laying in bed, and she tells him to stop yelling because she's got a hangover. And she hears some people talking and opens up her closet, and Odo and Kira are there. And it's like 10:30 in the morning. So Kira's late for work, and I guess they've been talking all night or doing other things. So they leave. And Worf basically wants Dax to apologize to Martok's wife, and specifically says beg for forgiveness. And she says, I don't beg, and gets all pissed off at Worf, and basically tells him, uh, we can just have you can go back to doing your thing with the boys, and when you're done, we'll go back to Cisco's office, and he can marry us. And he gets mad at that and calls off the wedding. So Chief and O'Brien and Bashir are happy because I forgot to mention this goes on for 4 days, and they're not supposed to eat anything the whole time. So they're like, okay, the wedding's off, let's eat. And so Martok is talking to Worf, and he basically is saying, the Klingons, us Klingons, we talk about glory and honor and our battles and so on and so forth, and but what are they worth if you can't share them with someone, And Worf says, she's not the type of woman that I thought I'd fall in love with, and she mocks things all the time and doesn't take things seriously, and I'm always serious, and they're basically complete opposites, but as they say, opposites attract. So Worf is basically convinced to to apologize to Dax. So the food arrives, and Bashir and O'Brien are about to eat when Cisco and Worf walk in and say the wedding's back on. So he takes the food away and tells them that there's no refunds. So they have to pay. I don't know how it works. People have talked about money in Star Trek, since Star Trek 4, since the 80s, about how it all works. I guess they're given credits in some fashion that they can trade in at places where you have to have money. There's whole entire, hour-long plus videos out there that explains the whole situation. So anyway, Cisco goes to talk to Dax, and Dax is still pissed off, and basically she says, I used to be the Klingon, the Federation ambassador to Klingon, to Kronos, and he says, no, that was Curzon. You're just nobody to her, and he yells at her. And if you've seen Deep Space Nine, the way he yells at people is like it's his own way of making a Picard or Kirk-like speech, and he gets her to realize that she's, she needs to grow up a little bit, and she's 300 and something years old, but she needs to grow up a little bit, and so now the wedding's back on. So they go through the ceremony, and they tell this story about the moon and the stars or something like that, and how two hearts are connected together. And at the very end, Bashir's holding that stick thing that I talked about, and he's like asking Martok, is now the time? And he's like, hold on, doctor, and then they go through a little bit more, and then it ends with, okay guys, now's the time, and they start running, and it fades to black, and you hear them beating, But this one's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's. I mean, what's to not to like? I mean, it's got the best way to explore humanity is through weddings and funerals. And if you look at what is it, The Big Chill is a funeral. It's based around a funeral and them having, dealing with the death of their friend. Later on, spoilers for a 30-year-old show, but later on, Dax is killed, and they have to save her soul so she can go to Sto-Vo-Kor. And it's very similar. They have to go through these traditions, and Chief and Cork is part of it, and because Cork was in love with Dax. But yeah, like funerals and weddings are one of the best ways to explore humanity and what it means. And I was married once, and you get the jitters, beforehand, and you start thinking, should I be doing this? And everybody kind of goes through it, I think, and you start thinking, maybe I should call this off, and maybe this is the whole rest of my life, and stuff like that. And then you're surrounded by friends, whether you're at a funeral or a wedding. You're surrounded by friends and family, or people that you consider family, and they're kind of going through this thing with you. And it's just a good way to and everybody loves a wedding. Free drinks, free food. Nobody likes a funeral, but when you are at a funeral or after the funeral, you're talking about that person, and you bring it, you have tears of joy and tears of sadness, because you bring up stories of what they did. When my mom died, they would tell stories that I never heard of about. She was an antique dealer, and tell stories about like going and doing antique stuff, and my stepdad would have to I used to call her like Sanford and Son, but she would make me go on these trips too sometimes, and would have to haul these big ass pieces of furniture that weigh a ton, and it's like, or she, later on in her life lived on a lake house, and her and her friends, oh, sorry, I'm gonna get upset. Her and her friends all piled on a canoe to take a picture, right? But there was too much weight in the canoe sunk, and they fell into the water. And I think at the time it was like winter time, or it was cold out. It wasn't summertime. And telling those stories, helps you get through that experience. If it's a funeral, and if it's a wedding, you get to tell stories about, before you met him, before you met the dead man, he did this and this, and your friends will fucking make fun of you and tell all these stories that your future wife or your wife or whatever, or husband, whatever, may not have heard of before, and of course it changes your friendships, because you're not going out to the bar every night, or you're not doing whatever you and your boys do, but you're also including her into your family, your friendships, and you know, hopefully for most people it goes well. But it's a great episode. A lot of good jokes. There was another joke. I forgot what it was. Oh, when O'Brien and Bashir are coming out, they're getting ready to go to the next trial, and Cork is taking down the banner, like the Klingon banner thing, and he's like, Brian's like, "What's going on?" And, well, haven't you heard the wedding has been canceled? And he says something like, she says that he's too, whatever, grumpy, too traditional, and she says, or he says that she's too emotional, too much of like a woman, and Brian goes, "Oh, so they're both right." Funny joke. A lot of good humor, a lot of good just character moments and character development, and they give Alexander something to do. Pretty much everybody's got something to do, although they never really get into what Odo and Kira were talking about and how they reconciled their differences or whatever. But that's not what this is Dax's moment. This is her and Worf's episode. Maybe, I don't remember, but maybe they get into it later. I know that there was one thing that Odo did. I can't remember what it was, but it was very questionable. Or no, it was something that she did, I think. She brought Jake in on the plan or something. And Odo was like, Odo was supposed to, that's what it was. Odo was supposed to be at a meeting because they're doing this resistance, and instead he was with the female founder for like a day or two, and that was that kind of messed up their plans and stuff. But that's the one thing that I can specifically remember. There might have been others, but I don't know if anybody's out there in the chat. The one thing that I can oh, there's DJ Play Nice stopping by to stopping by to say hi and leave a like. Have a great show and an awesome remainder of the week. Thank you, DJ Play Nice. Thank you for stopping by. I will leave a like for myself. I get a vote too. So now we get to the portion of the night. I know it was a quick review. I'm trying to improve on my my speaking and not being so slow. I'm trying to be a better public speaker. So I'm trying not to talk too slowly or take too long trying to go through the plot. But I also don't want it to be under 30 minutes, though, at the same time. So it's a balance. There's not much else I want to say about the episode other than the humor, the pacing. Humor's great, pacing's great, the story's great. We get into like more Klingon lore, Ronald D. Moore, and from what I hear on Ronald D. Moore may be taking Alex Kurtzman's place. Take that with the biggest grain of salt you ever seen. And until we hear more from all this Skydance thing going on, But that would be great news. I know people think For All Mankind is woke, but from where I left off, I haven't caught up with the latest season. I left off on the Mars, where they got to Mars, and then there was like that not a riot. It was a strike. God. That's the season that I left off, and then he also is part of Outlander, which I think is a great series. But I also haven't finished that either, and then of course Battlestar Galactica, the new one, or the reboot. Um, and he was definitely part of some of the greatest parts of the old Star Trek. So if that's true, I welcome it, but I do think they need to get rid of that whole team and just clean house, and let him bring in his own people, and then go forward. Go forward with that Archer series that they're talking about. Go forward with that. Go forward with Legacy, with Seven as the captain of the new Enterprise. Go forward with that. Tell us that everything that I don't know. But and I'm also going to do a review of Strange New Worlds at 9 o'clock tonight. But first of all, I'm going to check to see what fate has in store for me. So as you can see, Cordially Invited still there. Didn't mess it up. Press the randomize button. And we got TAS, which I've already said I'm not doing that. I've only seen TAS one time all the way through. So I'm going to randomize it again because I'm not doing TAS. I totally fucking forgot about TAS, to be honest with you. Alright, so we got Enterprise. Season 4, which is a better season. Episode 17, Bound. I recognize the title. Do not remember the plot. So, I'm wondering if it's one of the Orion episodes. Definitely sounds familiar. Anyway, that's all for me. I'll be back at 9 o'clock for the review of Strange New Worlds. I'm the Dead Man. Thanks for DJ Play Nice for showing up. Anybody else that's lurking? Admiral Teague is here. Oh, hey there, buddy. I didn't stay for your whole show, Admiral Teague, because I was watching Price of Reason last night at the same time. But I'm glad you showed up, and thanks for stopping by. Hopefully I can catch your show again. My schedule's about to change, so I should be able to join you again on Saturdays, hopefully soon, in the next few weeks. Anyway, I'm the Dead Man. This is the Red Hour, and I say goodnight to everyone who's lurking, everyone who stops by in the future, and everyone